All right.
That's what you use?
Yes. Well, yes, it is. Welcome to the show, everyone. My name is Mark. I am your host, and today it's Newcomer Sunday. And today on the show, I've got a special guest. His name is Travis. Travis, welcome.
Thank you for having me. Hey, everyone.
You're welcome. The recovery band, Kick It Boys. And I brought a studio audience. Yeah, look at that. They like you. Yeah, standing ovation already.
Yeah, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm still pretty new at this. I'm trying to deflate my ego.
How many months do you have, Travis, in recovery?
I have just over 6 months.
Really?
And yes, I can give you an actual day count. 185 days.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
Yeah, that's amazing. 6 months, everyone. Yeah. So is this your first time in recovery?
It is.
It is?
It is. It's my first time. Like, I guess I say it's my first time taking it seriously because I've been dragged to meetings before. So, but I didn't want to go. So, because I didn't think I needed to go.
How long ago was that?
That was around the beginning of the first several months of 2023.
Okay.
So last year.
So
about this time last year, actually.
So tell me about getting dragged to meetings. Like, were you like kicking and screaming?
No, I was pretty incoherent actually because what happened was that I had the first time I went to a meeting, I got dragged to a meeting. I was home alone. My wife was at work, and I had gotten drunk, and I decided to make some ramen in the microwave. And when I went to take the ramen out of the microwave, I went to turn around and put it on the counter, tripped, and fell and put a big hole in my drywall with my back.
Oh.
And and then tossed the ramen all over me. So freaked the dogs out. My wife came home to find me like on the couch, passed out, and just ramen everywhere and a giant hole in the wall.
Okay.
She called my parents and said, "Get him out of here." So they came, picked me up. They took me to a meeting that night, and I spent the night at their house. The second time was we were meeting up at my parents' house we being my wife and I. We were meeting up for my parents' house for dinner at my parents' house, and I guess I was doing something else during the day. I was off that day, so was she. But I don't remember what I was doing, but I do remember drinking, and I woke up parked in front of their house behind my wife's vehicle. I woke up to my parents and my wife helping me out of the car and into their car, and we went to a speaker meeting that night.
Really? So, like, they were trying to plant the seed?
They were, yeah.
Okay. Did it get planted?
Not really. I didn't resonate. I didn't identify with anything that, I heard at that speaker meeting, nor the meeting that I went to the first time. And it even, like, I tried to play along. I knew that I had an issue with alcohol. I didn't think I was an alcoholic, but I played along anyway. And I, did a share in the first meeting and said, my name is Travis. I'm an alcoholic. And it felt weird to say.
Yeah. You didn't believe it?
No.
Yeah, isn't that weird how, like, the denial just runs so deep? Like,
oh, yeah. It's crazy to think that, there's a disease out there that can convince you that you don't have a disease.
Right. So, let's see. So in the doctor's opinion, Roman numeral 28 says men and women drink essentially because they like the effect produced by alcohol. The sensation is so elusive that while they admit it is injurious, they cannot, after time, differentiate the true from the false.
Right.
And to them, their alcoholic life seems the only normal one. So you didn't think in any way that you were an alcoholic?
No, I didn't think I was an alcoholic. However, I did know that my drinking was getting out of hand.
Okay.
It was becoming it was a daily thing. Basically, if I wasn't at work, I was drinking or finding out a way I can go drink.
Now, do you remember your first drink?
Yeah, I was 19 in high school, and I had a friend of mine. He wasn't really a friend; he was more of a weed dealer, but he sold me good weed, so I thought he was a friend. And he also had a fake ID. So a buddy of mine at the time and I wanted to try some alcohol, and we went and got him. We went to meet up with this guy who got us a handle of Captain Morgan. And
Ooh, the captain.
yeah, and because we had heard about it, we were like, "Oh, that's supposed to be really good," and we drank the whole handle that night. And I remember like not being able to keep my head up, like not having any control of my head. It was just like kind of like a bobblehead. Okay. And then I don't remember anything else. I remember waking up the next morning, sick as hell.
What was the effect like?
The effect was, it was almost euphoric. Like it kind of warmed me up inside, and it felt just like really, really good. And, at the beginning, and then like it kind of the more you drink, the more that phased out, and the more you're just like, I don't know how to explain it, but you're just drunk at that point. You're just sitting there. Yeah. You really don't know what's going on. And so like, but at the very beginning, I do remember like a really good feeling, like with the first couple drinks.
Yeah. I can identify with that. Like when I took my first drink, and, I forgot, like I felt warm inside, and I forgot about like all this pain in my life. Like all this, my parents weren't around, the guys at school that bullied me, the girls that didn't like me, like I forgot all about them, and it was just, that was the effect that I liked so much.
Yeah. And, that's what I like too. I don't remember how long it was between that drink and my next drink. It wasn't until I moved out and had my own apartment.
Yeah.
Because at that point I had another friend with a fake ID. Actually, no, I take that back. He had a real ID. He was over 21. I was just 20.
Oh, okay.
But yeah, and I also had a really bad case of, when I was in high school, I went to Sarasota High, and I had a really bad case of keeping up with the Joneses.
Oh, really?
Yeah. So like, I see all these privileged kids and stuff like that. Their parents buy them like brand new trucks for Christmas or graduation or their birthday. They buy them these nice cars. They all have these nice clothes. I'm like, I want that so bad.
Ooh, envy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I was like, I want this. I want that so bad. And I was jealous of them because they had all these things. In a way, I was jealous of them because they had them and I didn't. But at the same time, like, I was just, later on, I realized I was like, oh, well, their parents bought it for them. So, yeah. I mean, it's really not that special.
Yeah.
So, but yeah. So, and meanwhile, I'm trying to figure out who I am in high school. I have a 95 Honda Accord, 5-speed. I loved it. I repainted it, blacked out the headlights, added a sound system. I love that car.
Yeah.
And I just wanted to fit in. And I think that's why I started drinking and smoking weed and stuff like that, because I was like, well, I see a lot of the cool kids are doing it, so maybe I'll try it. The weed stuck. The drinking did not, at least not at that time.
Okay.
So the weed, smoking weed became a regular thing for me. Up until the point where I got my first, or I was attempting to get my first government job. And then because of random drug tests, they're like one of the only 2 employers that I've ever had where they say, we have the right to randomly drug test you, and they actually do it. Oh. So I didn't have a choice. I had to stop smoking weed.
Yeah. So what? You just pick up a bottle?
No. I mean, I drank socially at that point.
Okay.
So it was either like at parties or, if I went out to dinner with my parents or something like that, I would have a beer or two. And that was at the point in my life where a 6-pack would last in my fridge for 3 or 4 months.
Yeah.
And then it progressed until, the 6-pack wouldn't last 20 minutes.
Yeah.
And I'd still be sober after that 6-pack.
Oh, yeah.
So
when hearing you talk about this, and there is a solution on 20 and 21, right?
Yeah.
And the cool thing is you got your big book too.
Yep.
And it says towards the bottom of 20, there it says moderate drinkers have little trouble in giving up liquor entirely if they have a good reason for it. They can take it or leave it alone. Then we have a certain type of hard drinker. He may have the habit badly enough to gradually impair him physically and mentally. It may cause him to die a few years before his time. If sufficiently strong reason, ill health, falling in love, change of environment, or the warning of a doctor becomes operative, this man may also stop moderate. Although he may find it difficult and troublesome, he may even need medical attention. But what about the real alcoholic? He may start off as a moderate drinker. He may or may not become a continuous hard drinker, but at some stage of his drinking career, he begins to lose all control of his liquor consumption once he starts to drink.
Yep.
Yeah. So when did that start to happen for you?
That started to happen about, I'd say 2016, end of 2016, is when it became a daily thing. I had also, at that point in time, so my alcohol consumption, I was a beer guy. My alcohol consumption had been daily at that point. However, it was, like good quality, like beer, like craft beer and stuff like that, like I used to drink socially.
Oh, yeah. It's got to be good quality.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Yeah, you're drinking socially.
Yeah.
Yeah, why not?
Bush or anything.
Look, eventually at some point, like I hit this thing where I was just like, you know what? Like I really love PBR. Like that was my thing. Like I love that trashy ass beer. It did the same thing as the craft beer did, and I was like, oh, craft beer. Why would you want that? Like
PBR is the same alcohol content and it's cheaper.
Yeah, absolutely.
No, I think the reason I stuck with the craft beer, even though it was a daily thing, was to help further convince myself that I'm drinking on a regular basis, non-alcoholically.
Oh, okay.
If it's good beer, it's non-alcoholic.
Hold on. What did you picture an alcoholic then?
I pictured. I don't know actually what I pictured. I don't. That's a good question. I didn't really picture any alcoholic. I didn't, because the only two alcoholics that I knew at the time had been sober and in recovery. They were my parents.
Yeah.
So those were the only two. So I don't know what an active alcoholic looked like at that time in my life. So I didn't picture anything.
Oh, okay.
I'm just thinking back on it right now and thinking maybe that's exactly what that was.
Yeah.
That was me trying to convince myself.
Yeah. Here's the deal. Like I remember like sitting in the bar, right, eventually at some point, and it switched from like, man, look at that guy over there freaking drinking like twice as fast as me. He's an alcoholic. I'm not. Like I would compare myself into being normal.
Yeah.
What I thought normal was, right? Or like I'd be sitting in the dope hole and I'm like, man, that guy's back for the third time today. Man, what a fucking addict. What a junkie. But yet I'd been hanging out there for 2 days.
Yeah.
Just because I didn't left, did he come back? Or like, hey, look at that guy bringing in something to trade for whatever. It's like, man, what?
Yeah, you
that
look
guy's
to your
got an
dealer and
issue.
be like, "Who's the fiend?" And he's like, "Who? Him or you?"
Yeah, exactly. But I'm basically living at the dope hole.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, it's like you think about it, right? Like the way we compare.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. And we do anything we can to make ourselves. Because I hear it in the rooms all the time. I didn't want to be an alcoholic. Nobody did.
Yeah, right. That's a dirty word.
And it's a very dirty word.
Yeah,
But.
So where'd it go? Like, where did you end up with it?
So at the end of 2016 is when I was drinking heavily daily, but I wasn't. I stopped. I switched from like the craft beer to, I I had found in the gas stations, I had found Mike's Harder lemonade.
No, not hard, but harder.
Hard lemonade is 4% alcohol. Harder lemonade is 8% alcohol, and it came in a 24-ounce can, and it was $3.
Woohoo!
Yeah, that's a cheap drunk. That's a cheap buzz right there. So I would get 2 of those and polish those off and maybe go out and get a couple more. And slowly but surely, I would start to get, 3 or 4 at a time, just so I didn't have to do as many beer runs.
Yeah.
And towards the end, the Mike's Harder 24-ounce cans turned into Four Loko 24-ounce cans.
Oh, really?
So this is one of the many things that tells me I know I'm an alcoholic. So when I first tried Four Loko, I forget what flavor it was. I think it was like a watermelon flavor or something. And it was probably the most grotesque thing I've ever tasted. It was so awful. And so a normal person would be like, I'm never drinking that shit again. Me, I'm like, surely there's a flavor that's good. So I found one. I tried a couple other. They were all awful, vile. Yeah. And then I found one that's good, but only if you drink it like ice cold or over ice or something like that, because the second it starts turning room temperature, it just becomes awful.
Like you're saying Four Loko, right?
Yeah.
Like I'm thinking about Four Loko, and here's how I know I'm an alcoholic, right? I remember when Four Loko came out the first time before they pulled it from the shelves.
And that's the other thing, not the original Four Loko.
Yeah.
I didn't drink during the original Four Loko that like killed people and shit.
Yeah.
I drank Four Loko when Four Loko was like rebranded and like reinvented or whatever.
Yeah, now that's how I heard, like, I was like, oh, I heard on the news like college kids were drinking it and dying, and I was like, oh my God, I got to try that stuff. And this is my one and only Four Loko story. So I went to a Red Hot Chili Peppers concert with a friend of me and my wife at the time, with a friend of ours. She was like, oh, I got an extra ticket to Red Hot Chili Peppers. You want to go? I was like, fuck yeah, I want to go. So I went to Red Hot Chili Peppers with her up in Tampa. Ended up drinking the whole time. Got back. Ended up going downtown and drinking. Don't remember much. But then the thought hit me. I was like, I want to try that drink. I was like, maybe I could find like a little convenience store that has Four Loko before they yank it off the shelves. Because I'm like, I got to try this, right? Like, this sounds like Death Brew. Let's do this.
Yeah.
And I do remember that. And the last thing I remember was getting the Four Loko. The next morning, my wife at the time wakes me up. I'm in my office. I'm passed out. There's an empty Four Loko can next to me, an empty Four Loko in my hand. And my face is on the computer, like on the keyboard. My pants are down around my ankles, and there's porn on. And there's porn on it, and I don't remember anything. And I think all she asked me was like, did you have a good time last night? I was like, I guess so.
It appears that way.
Yeah, I remember the last thought was, I'm going to get some Four Loko.
That's fucking awesome.
And I obviously did. And I don't know if I was blacked out before that, but I remember that. And I know that there was one that I drank, and I had one in my hand. And I was like, all right, so it was a good night. But that was my only time I ever tried Four Loko. That's it. So you're drink, like, where does all this drinking lead you to? Like, what happened?
So, there were several times where I would wake up I wouldn't wake up. I'm sorry. I was woken up, like either parked in my driveway or parked like perpendicular to in front of my driveway. Let's see. Let's see. We already talked about the ramen. One thing it did lead to, I drank a considerable amount, and, we went to sleep as usual, we being my wife and I, and then, at some point in the middle of the night, I got up to use the restroom. this was unbeknownst to me. So at the time, her sister was living with us because she didn't have a place to stay, so we were helping her out a little bit. And the next evening, she goes to preheat the oven to cook something. And we see the steam coming out of the back of the oven. And we're like, what is that? We went to smell it, and we all pretty much all threw up right then and there. Apparently, in the middle of the night, I had pissed in the oven. And we didn't find out until we turned the oven on and started heating it up.
What?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
So I was in trouble for that one. My wife was like, "You're cleaning it." I'm like, "Well, yeah, obviously." I was like, "You know what? This is fine because that oven needed to be cleaned anyway."
That was the justification.
That was exactly what I said to myself. I was like, "It needed to be cleaned anyway." So I took out the heating coils, took the door off, cleaned everything out. Yeah. So yeah, apparently, I park in front of driveways and fall through walls and piss in ovens.
All right.
So,
All right. Yeah. Hey, it's the normal life, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So what got you into recovery this time? What happened? What led you to recovery this time around?
Well, I mentioned that I park in driveways and in front of driveways. Well, this time, one day I had gone out and I was out all day. I'd been drinking all day as well. I'm driving around and I end up pulling into a neighborhood and just kind of pulled off to the side of the road, my foot planted on the brake, and I went to sleep. And I was woken up by an off-duty Charlotte County Sheriff's deputy. And he was, he was nice. He was talking to me, and he's like, you probably shouldn't be driving right now, should you? I was like, no, I shouldn't. I've been drinking too much. He's like, well, let's do something about that. And I was like, okay. I looked up where I was on my phone. I was able to do that. Not much else, according to the police report. But I looked up where I was, and I was able to navigate the AAA app. And I got a tow truck to come pick up my car and take it to my house.
Uh-huh.
Now, in my mind, when I'm doing this, the tow truck driver is going to load up my vehicle. I'm going to hop in the front seat. My car and I are going to go home. I'm going to go to bed. We're gonna pretend like this never happened. So that's where my mind was. The off-duty officer had another idea, and I know this because an on-duty Sarasota County Sheriff's deputy stepped up next to him.
Ooh.
So that's when I got arrested for a DUI.
Oh, man.
Yep. And so my wife was, worried sick because she didn't know where I was, and I hadn't talked to her all day because I think she was asleep most of the day. I don't think she wasn't feeling well or something. I can't quite recall that. But eventually, as I'm blacking out through most of this. I talked to the off-duty cop, and when I after I'm done getting the tow truck en route, I was like, well, I'm not driving anymore, and I had an unopened Four Loko.
You cracked it right there?
Just started drinking it right in front of the cop. I was like, well, I'm not driving anymore, so...
Did he let you finish it?
I don't even know if I let myself finish it. I don't think I got about halfway through it. And the whole, taking your keys out of the ignition, throwing it in the back, that doesn't work anymore.
Yeah.
Because I did that.
Yeah, the keys, I think, have to be out of the vehicle.
I think so, yeah, or something like that.
Yeah.
But it was in the police report that the off-duty officer witnessed me take my keys out of the ignition and throw them in the back. And it was written down in the narrative section.
So he didn't even make you take a field sobriety test?
Yes. So I tried to do the field sobriety test, and according to the narrative on the report, I wasn't very verbal. When I was, it was very incoherent. And when I was told to do the balance part, I fell. And they got me back up, and I just went to do the walk a straight line, and I don't even think I took one step, and I fell. And then they got me up, and they said, you're under arrest for driving under the influence.
Oh, man. Do you remember what was going through your head?
Nope. The whole thing, I don't even remember doing the field sobriety test. I don't remember refusing the breathalyzer. I have a quick flash of memory being in the back of the being loaded into the back of the SUV, and then it goes black again. And then when I come to, I'm in a brightly lit room with a bunch of other people in handcuffs.
Oh,
and I'm getting processed.
Yay.
Yeah. So that was my first time ever in jail.
Okay, so what happened after that?
Jail was not fun.
No?
No. Contrary to popular belief. I spent the night there. I think it was a total of like 12 or 13 hours, so it wasn't long, all things considering. And I get placed in, I think, I don't know if it actually was the recovery pod. I was basically in with like 6 or 7 other, I guess, homeless people and other people there for just minor stuff like drunk in public or something like that.
Yeah.
I think it's, today's equivalent of the drunk tank is where I was.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
And so I didn't sleep at all that night. I had a lot of things going through my mind. When I talked to my wife, you get the one free phone call. They wanted you to, state your name so the other person on the other line knows who's calling. And it says, state your name after the beep. And I heard the beep and I said, the moron. So when she received the collect call, it says, you receiving a collect call from the Sarasota County Jail from the moron. So she knew. I wanted her to know it was me.
Yay.
Yeah. And so I told her I was okay. And, I told her everything that happened. And
Yeah.
I guess the officer that arrested me had talked to her as well through my cell phone, because she kept calling my cell phone, and it kept going off. And so he talked to her, and he informed her that he's available for bail in 8 hours or 10 hours after the arrest or whatever it was, which would put me being able to be released at 2 a.m. And so I'm laying on my bunk, and I got the bottom bunk because of my weight at the time. It even said it on my sheet, over 300 pounds bottom bunk. And so I'm just sitting there, and everything's going through my mind, and I was like, I should have just driven away. He's on foot, I'm in a car. I would have gotten home before he figured out where I went.
Yeah.
And I'm like, why didn't he just let me go with the tow truck driver? Like, that was the thing that made the most sense. I'm like, why would he do that? Why did I'm an idiot for not just driving away.
Hold on. Did the thought of maybe I shouldn't have had those extra drinks or those drinks and drive, like, did that ever cross your mind? Because I know when I got stopped for my DUI, it didn't.
It did much later.
Yeah.
So I mentioned me being able to be bailed out at 2 a.m. for a reason. So my wife, I found this out much later too. My wife and my mom and my dad were all together because they all everybody had heard that I'd been arrested already. And so, they went back to their house, and around 2 a.m, when I was able to be bailed out, my wife called my mom and said, hey, we're able to bail, we can bail Travis out right now. And my mom goes, it's 2 a.m, let him stay there. I'm going back to bed. Click. And I'm glad she did that.
Yeah.
I'm glad she did that because when the thought crossed my mind that, I shouldn't have done this, and I had this like conversation to myself. You hear in the rooms like people are praying to God or their higher power to take away the obsession of alcohol, take away their craving to drink. And I didn't actually do that, but what I did do was much later on, because I couldn't sleep. Several reasons. One, it's just a thick metal slab. I ended up picking out a bedroll with 0 cushion in it. Also, my bunkie snored like a diesel engine with a hole in the exhaust. And in between those snores, He's dead ass asleep. In between those snores, he would just start maniacally laughing. So I'm like, well, I'm definitely not getting any sleep here tonight. And the cell's locked.
Yeah, it sounds pleasant.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Yeah, it was fun. So I had a lot of time I had all night to think with myself.
Yeah.
And it was after 2 a.m. It was probably about 3:30, 4 o'clock where, I just told myself, like, I don't ever want to be in this situation again. And I said, I don't want to drink anymore. I don't want to drink anymore. I don't want to drink anymore. And I actually meant it. And I, like, it came from the heart. I didn't just say it to appease other people, because before I was like, yeah, you're right. It's getting bad. I'm going to quit drinking. And then immediately I'd turn around and be like, no, I just need to be sneakier. I just got to hide it better. I got to be a little sneakier. That's all. But this time I actually was like, I genuinely do not want to drink alcohol anymore. I can't, because it's only going to get worse.
Yeah.
Because I had a job just prior to this, actually, where I was able to see how far it could go. I've seen people who are living on the streets, and they've succumbed to their alcoholism or their addiction, and they would drink Listerine, rubbing alcohol, hand sanitizer to get a buzz, and I'm like, yeah, I'll never go that bad. And then I get my DUI, and I'm like, shit, I'm headed exactly that direction.
Yeah.
So, and eventually death.
Yeah, that's
so.
We never think that we're gonna get that bad.
No.
Like that's the way I thought. And
no, again, it's the disease that convinces you don't have a disease.
Yeah. Wow. Yeah. Okay. So what did you end up doing?
My bail got paid, and I think about 10:30 or something, 10:30, 10:45. My name came over the speaker saying I've been released. Grab your stuff.
Mm-hmm.
My wife came and picked me up. I got all my stuff back. I was processed out. I got all my stuff back, and this is the first time for me, so I didn't know like where I was gonna be. I thought maybe I was just gonna like walk through the lobby and be like, you're free now. No, apparently there's literally like a back door. They open it and they're like, don't come back.
Oh shh.
And we're just like, where the hell? It's bright out. What's going on? And it's like it's a back door that leads out to Ringling Avenue, and that's where they give you the boot. So I had to walk back around and call my wife saying I'm out and come get me. And she came and got me, and we hugged and we cried and stuff like that. And we immediately got in touch with a rehab facility here in Sarasota, and so I got arrested on a Thursday. I got released Friday morning. The following Thursday, which was the 9th or the 7th or something of November, was my first day I checked into rehab. So, but every day until that day, I went to an AA meeting every night.
Hearing you talk about you were talking about the people on the streets that were like, they were drinking hand sanitizer and rubbing out whatever they could to get a buzz. I found what I was looking for is on 354.
Okay.
Of the big book. It's back in the personal stories. In the story, it might have been worse. And we always hear about yets, and I remember hearing that in the meeting for the first time early in recovery, and I was like, "What's a yet?" And this basically kind of talks about it. It's the first full paragraph on 354. It says, "Could I be an alcoholic without some of the hair-raising experiences I'd heard of in meetings? The answer came to me very simply in the first step of the 12 steps of AA. We admitted we were powerless over alcohol, that our lives had become unmanageable. This didn't say we had to be in jail 10, 50 or 100 times. It didn't say I had to lose 1, 5, or 10 jobs. It didn't say I had to lose my family. It didn't say I had to finally live on Skid Row and drink Bay Rum, canned heat, or lemon extract. It did say I admitted I was powerless over alcohol, that my life had become unmanageable.
Yep.
Yeah, and it's... So you saw where you were heading.
Yeah. Because all those people that I had come in contact with in the years prior had flashed into my head, and I was like, yeah, that's exactly where this will lead if this continues.
Yeah. So you ended up in treatment.
I ended up in treatment.
Yeah. And what was treatment like for you?
It was kind of ghetto. But at the same time, like,
well, what were your expectations? Like, it was going to be some like high 5-star resort. Like, oh my God, come here and recover. And it's like,
if I'm being completely, I didn't have any expectations, but at the same time, there is that TV show called Intervention, and that's exactly what they get sent to, like horseback riding, massages, like exercise pools, stuff like, The most I ever got was like yoga class. I remember seeing the brochure of treatment, right? And I remember seeing it, and I was like, oh, this looks like a nice place, and it wasn't bad. But it was nothing like the brochures. Like, I saw this decked out room, right? And the funny thing is, the decked out room that was on the brochure, I ended up staying in residential. Really?
Yeah, and it was like, man, they must have really cleaned it before. Because I'm living in that room with like 3 other people, and it's in this apartment complex where they have the residential, and it's like, and it didn't look anything like the pictures. Like, in reality, it was like, man, that was a good Photoshop job.
Yep. Yeah. Well, it was an old converted motel. It was a motel back in like the 50s and 60s. It was a converted motel off of North 301, and just by saying that, I know a lot of people already know exactly where I'm talking about. But it's they cut off contact from the outside world. They take your phone, any tablets or computers or whatever that you might have with you, any way for you to contact the outside world. And so basically you have to earn that stuff too. So like after 1 week you get computer privileges, after 2 weeks you get phone privileges, and then there's a phone there. It's like a community cell phone. You get 10 minutes on it. You got to get a pass from your counselor. Yeah. And hope that you get on the phone that day. Okay. Because it's one phone to, I don't know, 70-something, 80-something people. Yeah, they used to pass around like we didn't have phone access, but they had iPhones that you could specifically call out on. You had to check them out, and you get like 30 minutes max on them. Oh, okay. Yeah, nope. We just had one phone, and they managed to take off every single application off of that phone. You couldn't text. You couldn't. You couldn't even go into the settings. So it was there was just call. Yep, that was it. That was it. Yep. You better remember somebody's phone number. Yeah. Yeah, well, the only ones I needed to talk to at the time, I already knew their numbers. My parents, my wife, my sister. Yeah. And I also had some numbers written down. They let you get some numbers out of your phone, and they let you put some names down for a visitor list. After, I think 1 week they call it your blackout period. You're allowed to have visitors on the weekends. Oh, really? Yeah. So okay. So what was like, you did how long in treatment? How long did you 28 days. 28 days. Yep. What was that 28 days like for you? I feel like it was like, because I actually wanted the sobriety and I actually wanted, to not drink anymore, I actually benefited from it. And it wasn't just like a month vacation, or it wasn't, a way to get, 30 days of sobriety and then just go back out and start drinking again. I actually wanted the information, so I utilized the tools and the literature that the counselors gave us during our sessions, which there were 2-hour sessions a day. It was pretty structured. So, first thing in the morning, early in the morning, you get breakfast, and then I think it's like 7:30 is roll call. Everybody goes to what they call the big kitchen, and they do roll call and have some announcements or whatever, and then they're like, all right, go away. And then we line up for our medications. And then there's only one spot in the whole campus where you can smoke, and it was called the smoke pit.
Of course.
Yeah.
It's the greatest pit ever.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
They took my vapes. I brought 2 vapes and a pack of cigarettes.
What?
Yeah, they said no vaping because you can put other stuff in them. And I was like, well,
So you can only smoke cigarettes?
yeah.
Huh,
So
yeah.
I went back to cigarettes for an entire month, and I went right back to my vapes as soon as I got back out because I stopped liking the taste of cigarettes.
So let's talk about this. So you got out. What did you do when you got out?
That night I went to a meeting. I got out about 9:00 in the morning. I went home, spent some time with my wife.
Yeah.
We had several conversations, several long talks, about the future and stuff like that, about the future of my sobriety, about us. And then that night I went to, a meeting, out east on Bee Ridge. And because one of the home group members of that meeting had brought in an AA meeting, into the rehab, and so I was talking to him and found out where his thing was, and I realized it was close to my house. So I was like, yeah, I'll give that one a try. And I got out and I went to that meeting that night and I got my 30-day chip, and because I had my white chip before I went to rehab.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, and I drilled a hole in it so I could turn it into a keychain and keep it with me.
Yeah.
I wanted to keep my white chip and a house key with me at all times.
Yeah.
So that I can always remember to put, so I could always remember, like, look at it and stay sober. And then, my house key was so that I can remember what I have waiting for me at home.
Yeah. So, well, that's cool. Like, so it sounds like you wanted it.
I do. I did. And I do.
Yeah. Well, that's the thing. Okay. Like you were in treatment, obviously, with other people.
Mm-hmm.
Like, have you kept in touch with them?
I did at the beginning. I was actually just texting one a few days ago. But when we first got out, we had this. A few of us had this group text. And we were all, we would all go to meetings together and say, what meeting we going to tonight? What's available? And we'd all try to meet up and go to meetings together, which we did. For like the first couple weeks, and then slowly but surely, the group chat, kind of, it started getting a little more silent.
Yeah.
One of the members, one of the people in the group chat was like, he's like, it's hard to get a meeting in the day because I work so much, and one person's like, yeah, I live so far away, and
oh no, did they relapse?
Every single person in that group went back out except for me.
Well, okay, so like that takes me back to treatment because we had, I heard things in treatment, like people saying, I'm never going to do it again, right? Like I know I'm not going to go back. I'm going to do what it takes. And then one by one, like we had a group chat, and one by one, that group chat started to slowly shrink.
Mm-hmm.
And we all started to stop meeting up and everything. And people just kind of started disappearing. Or you hear stories, hey, did you hear about so-and-so? Yeah, they went back out. Blah, blah, blah. And I heard a speaker after I had gotten out, and he referenced page 101 in the big book. And I always stick to this because I think it's a great reference. And on 101 in the middle of the page, it says, in our belief, any scheme of combating alcoholism which proposes to shield the sick man from temptation is doomed to failure. If the alcoholic tries to shield himself, he may succeed for a time, but he usually winds up with a bigger explosion ever. We have tried these methods. These attempts to do the impossible have always failed. Mm-hmm. And the way he related it is he's like, isolation didn't work. And treatment doesn't necessarily fix the problem for people like for the real alcoholic.
Right.
Or the real addict. It doesn't fix the problem.
Right.
And it just separates you from the problem.
Yeah.
Well, the problem's you, but it separates you from the drugs and the alcohol.
Right. It separates you, I'd even say temporarily, because when I was in treatment, somebody, like my first week or something, on a Saturday night, like hopped the fence, went out to go get some Fireball, and came back and was drinking was sharing it with everybody.
Oh no.
I found out about this the next morning. This apparently happened at like 10, 11 o'clock at night or something like that. I found out about this the next morning after roll call when everybody had to do a surprise urinalysis.
Uh-oh.
I was in bed. I was in bed at like 9 o'clock, and I'm like, thank God, I'm going to bed at 9 o'clock every fucking night.
Yeah.
I don't want no part of that.
You know, I think back to like the treatment, people I was in treatment with, and it's coming up on 2 years ago, and some of them did get back into recovery, but pretty much every single one of them that said, "Oh, I'm never going to do it again. That was my last time. I'm going to stay sober," that didn't do anything about it, relapsed. And I heard some of the stories, and some of the stories were heartbreaking. Some things that happened to them, and or you hear about them, and it's like, damn, it's like you realize after you've been sober a while, and like how far like I had gone, and the stories that I heard in treatment of how far they had gone, and it's just playing with fire.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and some don't even make it back ever.
Yeah, I'm really hoping that they do find their way back, but it's not one of those things you can force on somebody. I mean, you can try to force it on them, but it's not going to stick because they're going to be they're going to resist every step of the way because it's not something that they want to do right now. So when they want it, they will find their way back, and I just hope that it happens sooner than later.
Yeah, right. So you went to a meeting afterwards. So what did you end up doing after you went to the meeting?
Let's see.
When you got out, you're still going to meetings, right?
Oh yeah, every day.
That's awesome.
Meetings every day. Saturdays, some Saturdays is 2 meetings a day, just because I found 2 meetings. Well, I've got my home group now. They meet on Tuesdays, Thursdays, and Saturdays, and then there's a meeting Saturday afternoon that I like going to. Meeting at least 1 meeting a day. Saturdays, sometimes 2 meetings. So I'm doing anywhere from 7 to 8 meetings a week. Do
you got a sponsor?
I do.
No. Okay.
I do. And he's taking me through the big book. And
what step are you on?
Step 6. I'm learning how to get rid of my character defects right now.
Oh, drop the rock?
Yep.
Yeah,
In fact, he just gave me that book, so him and I are going to be working on that, or reading that book over the next couple weeks.
Awesome. Yeah, the thing is, I know character defects are interesting. I still got them.
Oh yeah.
But it's like if I keep working at this, like I start to replace them with assets and start replacing them with principles, and it's a process.
It is, but like when you work that process, when you do those, when you work on those character defects, you start to become more aware of those defects as they're happening. So you're able to, as they say, check yourself before you wreck yourself.
Oh yeah.
So you're able to check yourself before somebody else does.
The funny thing about defects is like I'm like, oh, I haven't been angry in like shit. A month or two? Like, really? And then all of a sudden, it's like God will be like, okay, here's the situation. And then I'm like, oh, dang it. I got mad. And then it's, try again.
Yep.
So that's awesome. And do you have service commitments?
I've got one I had 2 at my home group. I have 1 now because, so the second one was, I set up the audio at my home group.
Nice.
My home group is OMD out east on Bee Ridge. It's the Alliance Church. They call it something else now, like Renewal or something.
Nice. You like OMD?
I do, yeah. It's a big meeting. Tuesday night, it's a literature meeting. So Tuesday night is Big Book. We read out of the Big Book. Thursday night, we read out of the 12 and 12, and then Saturday is a speaker meeting.
Oh, cool.
So we get a little bit of everything when we meet. And
not just like the open discussion only.
Exactly, yeah.
Those are good though. Like literature meetings are good.
Yeah, I like literature meetings. There was a lot of things that I took away from my treatment. A lot, not from the people that brought meetings in. A lot of words of advice and stuff like that. And well, that was one of the things. Find yourself a literature meeting. You can go to whatever meeting. Just someone had said that. When they're at the beginning of their recovery, literature meetings really benefited them. So I was like, all right, I'll try that.
Yeah.
and I actually really liked it, and so I became a home group member there. So I set up the audio Tuesdays, Thursdays, and Saturdays. And Saturdays, for a short period of time, I would set up the audio, and then I would go greet at the door.
Okay.
And then a couple weeks ago, we had another newcomer show up with about a month's sobriety, and he became our door greeter on Saturday. So I was like, all right, cool.
Nice. And so you're doing all these things. How do you feel?
I feel awesome right now. Like I enjoy not having the. I enjoy not, occupying my brain with trying to figure out like what gas station am I going to go to get beer.
Oh yeah.
I can't go to the same one every single time. They're going to think I have a problem.
Yeah, I remember that thinking.
So I have to rotate my gas stations.
Okay.
I enjoy not scheduling my life around alcohol. I now schedule my life around meetings. Like I wake up in the morning, I'm like, what day is it? Oh, it's Tuesday. We get to go to OMD tonight. We're like, oh, it's Monday. We got Midway tonight. So like I wake up in the morning. My sponsor gave me a passage out of the Big Book to read every morning and every night. It's page 86.
Really? You want to read it?
Yeah, I'll read it for you.
Yeah, all right.
And
let's go.
he didn't really give me a time frame on when I have to stop, but it doesn't really matter because I'm still doing it.
When my sponsor had me start on that, it's just kind of like, I don't really necessarily read it every morning. I just practice it and apply it to my life. But I pretty much know what it says. So like, kick it off. So
it says, so every morning it's on awakening. Let us think about the 24 hours ahead. We consider our plans for the day. Before we begin, we ask God to direct our thinking, especially asking that it be divorced from self-pity, dishonest, or self-seeking motives. Under these conditions, we can employ our mental faculties with assurance, after all God gave us brains to use. Our thought life will be placed on a much higher plane when our thinking is cleared of wrong motives.
Okay, so you hit that every morning.
So I hit that every morning, and every night I do the paragraph right above it, which is, when we retire at night, we constructively review our day. Were we resentful, selfish, dishonest, or afraid? Do we owe an apology? Have we kept something to ourselves which should be discussed with other persons at once? Were we kind and loving toward all? What could we have done better? Were we thinking of ourselves most of the time, or were we thinking of what we could do for others, of what we could pack into the stream of life? But we must be careful not to drift into worry, remorse, or morbid reflection, for that would diminish our usefulness to others. After making our review, we ask God's forgiveness and require that corrective measures should be taken.
All right. Yeah, those are powerful. Like, that's what my sponsor, the sponsor before my official sponsor, he had me start reading that. And even though I didn't keep working with him, like, I kept doing that for a long time. And what it did is it started building that conscious connection with God, my higher power, and because he said that one of my problems is that I had a conscious separation, and so I was like, oh, okay, I'll try this, and it helped me come to believe. So like, okay, I want to ask you, like, how are you doing with the whole higher power thing, being 6 months in?
I'm slowly starting to say, I kind of mix it up with saying, power greater than myself, higher power, and God. I am slowly starting to say God more, because it is a God of my understanding. It's not like a religious God, which I'm with you. I had a resentment towards God. I didn't believe in God. I was, I guess, more of an agnostic, but I hated religion, organized religion. For me, it's just not my thing. So I had a resentment against it, even though it had zero effect on my life.
I can relate to that. Like, I'm not an organized religion guy, but I'm a God guy.
Yeah. Yeah. So now, like, and I didn't know the difference between spirituality and religion. I thought I thought they were the same.
I know, right?
And so my sponsor was able to help clarify that, and now I do understand spirituality, and I do feel like I am spiritual with my higher power. And so, I do talk to my higher power on a daily basis because, that is the one that's in charge right now. And because it's never worked out for me in the past. So
my way never worked out.
Yep, exactly.
Isn't that like when I realized, I'm like, the light bulb came on, right? It's like somebody gave it a little twist and a flick and it came on, and I was like, my way hasn't really exactly been working out the best.
And so one of the things that I took away from treatment, one of the things that I took away from somebody bringing an AA meeting into treatment is that, they said, do your 90-90, find your home group, find your sponsor. Excuse me. Go at your sobriety or your recovery with the same intensity that you went at drinking.
Yeah, it's pretty intense.
And so I was like, okay, that makes sense. I can do that. So that's what I did. As soon as I got out, and they also said that, like, something about, there's a statistic or something, if somebody, when you leave treatment, if you don't go to a meeting within 24 hours, you have a very low % chance of making it, or something to that effect. And so I was like, all right. So I got out that morning. I went to a meeting that night, and I've been going to meetings ever since. And one of the things that's exactly what I did. I did my 90-90. Yeah. I got my service. I found my home group. I got a service commitment within that home group. I found my sponsor. We started working through the steps, and in how it works, it says, they said those who are willing to do anything, or
go to any length. Yeah.
Go to any length, and that's what I was willing to do. I have been willing to go to any length to maintain this recovery that I've gotten so far.
Yeah. Well, that's the thing. It's like, it's not for those that need it. It's not for those that want it. It's those willing to go to any length.
Mm-hmm.
And I found that that's what separates. Like, because some people think that they need it. If everybody who needed recovery was in recovery, we'd be bursting at the seams.
We would, yeah.
Yeah, and it's God, I was thinking about the statistics. In this, I got this book. It's the 20 Most Misunderstood, Misinterpreted Mistakes of the Big Book of Alcoholics Anonymous, by Danny Falcone, and he annihilates some of the slogans.
Okay.
In here, and it's not like the easy does and all this stuff. It's some of the BS that you hear in the rooms. And this one, meeting makers make it. He has this one in black.
Yeah.
And it says, no, they don't. The statistics are 85% of the people don't make it, and I say every last one of them is a meeting maker. Step workers make it. Period. Nothing else to talk about there. And he talks about this, and I was actually at a meeting.
And I noticed that's a very short paragraph because he meant it. There's nothing else to talk about, plain and simple.
Yeah, it's sometimes you hear the BS in the rooms, and I I was at a meeting where he was actually the speaker, and he was talking about the statistics and how it's it's been low, and
of people making it.
Well, just of people, like the success rate.
Oh, right.
And,
okay.
And from, there's a whole thing I've heard about, like, from other speakers, like convention speakers that have talked about it. And it's very low with the invention of treatment and all this other stuff. And, and I found, at least for me, the only way that I recovered was going to meetings, getting a higher power, getting a sponsor, doing the steps, reading the book, like the big book. Mm-hmm. Is where I found recovery. It's where I found all sorts of things related. I basically found myself in that book.
Yeah. And I've heard that a lot, like where people, like they have, everyone has their story in that book. And I'm making my way through the big book right now. And I've also heard other people like say, like they've gone to speaker meetings and the speaker was telling their story. I didn't have a speaker, tell my story like through and through. I've had multiple speakers tell little bits of my story.
Oh, okay.
And so I was able to and so basically little, a little something from this speaker, a little something from this speaker, a little something from this speaker, and you put it all together, and that was my story.
Yeah.
So it wasn't, so it was kind of just like pieced together, but it was through speaker meetings that I was able to determine that this is where I need to be.
Yeah.
And
so you've conceded to your innermost self.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep. And I, that night when I was in jail, I did with my first step without realizing it. I was powerless over alcohol, and my life had become unmanageable because I was in jail. So there's nothing manageable about jail when you're the prisoner.
Yeah. And it's, yeah.
When you're the inmate,
Yeah. Well, I had gone to jail in 2012 for a DUI, but I still didn't think I was an alcoholic. I still didn't truly believe it. It took me another 10 years of countless vain attempts to prove that I could drink like other normal human beings, and it never worked out.
Yeah.
Never. My buddy Terry J talked about that on his episode. He's been in recovery, he's tried it, but yet he failed at some point to concede to his innermost self, and that's what he's doing different this time. It's like that's the first step of recovery. That's before the first step. I have to truly believe in my heart that I'm an alcoholic, but when I look back at my thinking through everything and the way that I still think today, even in recovery, even in sobriety, I'm a freaking alcoholic.
Yeah. I still do things alcoholically too, like my vapes. When I get low on a vape, I have a little screen that tells me how much fluid I have left. If I'm at 10%, I go get another vape. When that one gets to 10%, I hit both of them at the same time so I can take shorter hits and still get the same amount of nicotine. And I was telling this to another member, and he's like, "Oh yeah, you're an addict. You're an alcoholic."
Yeah, it's.
And sometimes I say addict instead of alcoholic because alcohol is a drug. So even alcoholics are in a technical sense, alcoholics are addicts. So addiction's addiction.
Yeah, well, yeah. I had somebody say that he pointed to the doctor's opinion. And he was like, "Oh, alcohol in any form. Have you ever been able to do anything non-alcoholically in your life?" And I look back at all those years. And I'm like, come to think of it, no. There's nothing I could do non-alcoholically. I get my mind set on something and I'll go alcoholic on it.
It's just balls to the wall, all or nothing.
Yeah, it is. So what are you grateful for today?
Right now, I'm grateful to be. I'm very grateful to be free from the bondage of alcohol right now. I'm also I'm grateful for a bunch of little things. Just, I'm grateful to have a roof over my head. I'm grateful to have a support circle that cares about me and wants to see me do good. And I'm grateful for my sponsor taking me through the steps and teaching me basically teaching me how to navigate my new life. Because the alcoholic way of navigating things wasn't working, and because the answer to everything, if I'm sad, drink. If I'm happy, drink. If I'm angry, drink. So now I need to actually figure out how to deal with emotions. And I know it's been mentioned before on the podcast, and it's been mentioned before in meetings and stuff. It's hey, good news, your emotions come back. Bad news, your emotions come back.
Yeah,
it's so true.
Well, it is, right?
Now you're now you're just happy for no reason. You're just I don't really know what to do with this, or you're angry and you're now I know how to deal with my anger. If I get angry, I'm a very hard person to anger. I don't get angry very easily, but when I do, it usually takes a minute to calm me down, and now I know how to do that. So without alcohol.
Well, hearing you talk about that, it takes me to 553. It's in the story AA taught him to handle sobriety. And it's the first paragraph on 553. And yeah, it's right there.
Yep.
Yeah. Yeah, and it says, you want to read it?
Yeah, I'll read it. When I had been in AA only a short while, an old-timer told me something that has affected my life ever since. AA does not teach us how to handle our drinking. It teaches us how to handle sobriety.
Yeah, right? Yeah, it's like as long as I just keep plugging forward. And some days, if the only thing I did do right was not pick up a drink or a drug, like I'm doing okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, but yeah, so
yeah, and like that's kind of how I am right now. I'm, there's some things in my life that aren't going so well. But you know what? I've got my recovery, so I'm good.
There you go.
And when people ask me how I'm doing, sometimes my answer is, right now the only thing good right now is the recovery, and I'm glad I have at least that, because everything else will fall into place as long as I have that.
Yeah, right. Yeah, it does. It does get better, but it's not. It took me a while to understand like why they talk about trudging the road of happy destiny. It's like at the end of Vision for You, right?
Yeah, because some days you just like, this day sucks.
Yeah. But yeah, it doesn't say anywhere in recovery that I'm promised rainbows and kittens every day, like clear blue skies. Yeah. So what do you got for the newcomer that might be listening to this? Somebody with 6 months or less.
I would say the same thing that was told to me when I was in rehab. Do the things that the old timer suggests. The 90-90, the sponsor, the service commitment. The service commitment it really makes you feel like you're a part of AA and or NA if that's your thing. It really makes you feel like you're a part of it, and it's a good feeling to have. And go at your sobriety, your recovery with the same intensity that you went with your drinking or your drug addiction. And if you went with that exact same intensity, you're gonna recover, and do the steps. You're gonna recover, so it's going to happen.
Yeah, the steps are great. Having a higher power is great.
Having a higher power is great.
Just having a service commitment's good. Like it's all just it's really good. So all right, well, Travis, thank you so much for your time today. Thank you so much for your service. And
thanks for having me.
Yeah, you're welcome. So, all right, well, we're going to go ahead. The recovery band's looking at me. They're like, when can we play? And I'm like, right now, kick it, boys. Yeah. That one funk song. And studio audience. Yeah, there you go. Well, they're inflating your ego.
Yeah, they are. Don't worry. I'm working on that. So I got to say, though, they both do sound much better in person.
Yeah, right? All right. Goodbye, everyone, and be well.